Andre DeQuisto. I'm the founder of Lone Wolf Portable Tree Stands, Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
All right, well, we got Dan on the line.
And I started thinking, I probably shouldn't have shared those pictures. But
All right, guys, we got Don Higgins on.
Anything that's got to do with chasing big deer, I've got my hands in it somehow. So.
Well, my name's John Eberhardt. The first one that comes to mind was early in my career.
I'm Scott Buckley from Iowa. I had jumped him in the summer too. He jumped up in that swamp grass down in the bottom lake.
And that's what I'm doing. I'm chasing it. There ain't nothing stopping me.
Justin Hollingsworth. I'm with Whitetail Addictions and Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
So what are we talking about tonight?
We're talking about the one that got away.
They talked about a deer that you didn't get it done on for some reason. So go ahead and get into the story of the one that got away.
All right, welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, coming in your ear holes hard as AF. We've been out frozen to death all day, doing all-day sets here last weekend of deer season in the CWD County. We're up here at Logan Seller's crib, out in the shed. It's beautiful. I slept in here last night. It was glorious.
You didn't have to.
Nice and peaceful.
He wanted to. You could have slept in the house.
Yeah, I stay in the shed. But yeah, he blessed me with letting me come up here, and we've seen 40 plus deer tonight. He's going to go into his late season strategy of how he's worked this property to be able to hold this many deer. But we're going to get to the people that make this possible. We're going to get in the show. We're going to start off with Exodus Trail Cams. I want to mention their Trail Cam Radio podcast. It's one of my favorite other podcasts to listen to. They had a really good one on here recently about the Utah trail camera ban. And I learned a lot of stuff on there, but I didn't know kind of the reason they were wanting to get rid of the trail cams. Guys are super knowledgeable about what's going on in that side of the industry. And if you want to know anything about trail cams, they're not holding back, and they're letting you know the truth about what they're putting out. And their booster antenna is now available. So if you have a cell cam like us that has mediocre service in a certain spot, has one bar, it won't work if you have no bars, but if you have one bar and you get this booster signal, it will work. So that's another option for you. Last Breath. They also have a podcast, Huntcast, and they had a podcast about Illinois' new laws that they have coming up. And they have 3 new laws that they're trying to vote on right now. And they cover that really good. Grant's awesome at really diving in, and he gets like the law numbers and everything, so you can research it, and goes really deep on that. You check that out. Their podcast is super cool. And they've been working on it for quite a while now. Also, we got the Badlands code for them. It's changing. They said they're going to try to get us a new code. So if you want to reach out to us, and we'll put you on a list, we get the new code, we'll send it out to you. Right On Optics, they got the new 5 Primal spotting scope out, and the tripod. I just seen pictures of it. You have to get on a waiting list. They also have some new scopes coming out and some new binos. So pretty excited about that. Check them out at rideonoptics.com. And Next Level Deer Supplements. They're going to be at the Iowa Deer Classic or Iowa Beer Classic. Hopefully I can bring Logan along with me this year. Maybe you bring your wife, you said, maybe.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
And hopefully bring it along and have a good time out there. Hopefully they get the custom wood floor penthouse suite again that we got last year. And I can take my cot and sleep on it again.
I just ordered a cot, so I'm gonna be ready to go.
Oh, you're ready to go. That's like a $27 one right there.
Yeah.
It's pretty low to the ground. But all right, let's get into this podcast. So we're going to talk about, we went out tonight and we seen 40 plus deer, 10 bucks at least, 3 bucks that were 140 or better, one that was probably mid 150s. End up passing them all. You've already shot 2 bucks.
Yep.
I shot 3 bucks.
Legally still, I still could, in CWD counties, I could still shoot a 3rd buck, but kind of my goal into going into this late season like that, it's going to have to be my personal best for me to squeeze the trigger on a 3rd buck. But
which I was thinking about that. Yeah, I was thinking about that when you were in there and I was out here. I was like, that's probably the right thing, because you're going to be hunting out there all year.
And again, it's a permission spot, so you never know. I mean, you can always lose a property, and that's not always a reason to go in and kill all the bucks. But again, it's like there's that many good bucks, but there's a lot of just solid 2.5-year-olds. But
Yeah.
I also want to be chasing those. I'd
Yeah.
love to see that 150 break the 160 mark and possibly, but again, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think
it's not
that's
the end of the day.
I think that the 9-pointer is the best one. You got the chance of being 160, 170.
Yeah. Besides, I mean, Acorn Buck,
Yeah.
he is younger. You
Yeah.
don't know what he's going to do, but I think he's still a solid buck.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Honestly,
sure.
I thought he was bigger than on trail camera. He looked bigger. He showed up in the last month. I got him on camera twice. And then this is the first time I actually got to see him on the hoof, which was kind of cool just to actually get to judge him. And then we got to judge him against how many other
a
bucks.
bunch of other deer. Yeah.
But,
So
yeah, it was really neat. It was
Yeah.
a fun hunt.
So up here in the CWD county, you're able to get a third buck tag, and you're able to hunt with a gun. If you so choose.
CWD, and we discussed this last year.
Yeah.
Homie, is you can buy a CWD tag. It's antlerless, but if you have leftover tags like
Yeah.
I do, firearm tags or muzzleloader tags or either sex, you can kill another buck. The antlerless or the antler deer limit of 2 doesn't exist during CWD weekends.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you can shoot as many bucks you want, but I don't know anybody around here that
Yeah,
goes
that's
out
just
there
out
and
there
just
slaying.
murders bucks like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And even I talked with the neighbor and he was kind of like, you still hunting? I'm like, well, I like hunting.
Yeah.
I don't want to not hunt, but also, I was waiting for that buck that nobody's seen come rolling through,
Yeah. We're kind of out there hunting, just something to show up. But
Yeah.
we did get to see all the deer that you're going to be hunting next year and get an eyeball on them.
Yeah.
Know that they're more than likely going to make it. They've all looked healthy.
Especially everything. Nothing
Yeah.
had a limp.
Yeah, nothing
Nothing-
had already even dropped an antler yet.
No,
So you got a ton of intel on kind of what you got to look forward to next year.
I think
out there.
that's the hardest part too, is like, if you've had a pretty good year
Yeah.
and you go into late season, all these bucks are going to make it. Like,
Yeah.
maybe one of them will slip up tomorrow and maybe the neighbor will shoot one. Maybe, but
Yeah.
there's still, he ain't going
Oh,
to shoot all of them.
Yeah.
You
there's still
know?
all those in there. Yeah.
and
for sure.
that's just it, being that the neighbor too is, and I think that's why there's a good group of people over there that do want to see the deer get bigger.
Yeah.
So it does help.
So last week on the podcast, we talked about the power of late season food, and we planted a food plot and had an opportunity at a buck. And it's something that we haven't really done in the past with the late season food plot. You actually have 2 food plots planted on this place.
Yep. It's
And-
like, I would say it's 2.5.
Yeah.
Because I do have the clover in
Yeah.
the back, because you didn't
Yeah.
see that one, but
And you're wanting to expand on what you got going on.
yeah.
But go ahead and kind of break down the property and then how you got the food plots set up, and then how you got your blind set up and why. And so that's how you're able to hold
Well,
all these deer, because people
Yeah.
think 40 deer one night in one spot.
And again, and
There's
they
reason,
came from the neighbors too.
Yeah.
They're coming from
Yeah.
the neighbors too. And the neighbor does, I think what sets that place up so good is that the neighbor leaves food too. Like, they have beans, like if he has beans on that north field where it's
Yeah.
corn, they normally leave like 1.5 acres there, which that is huge. Not a lot of farmers do that. I know a lot of farmers that hunt and don't do that on their own property. And honestly, I think that's what kind of sets up all those deer staying in there, because they got 2 properties to really,
And then we got that hayfield.
and then exactly wrapped in a hayfield like that. So, and then it's one of those things too, is I pretty much did my food plots out of, like, in that spot, I really didn't have a choice. But back when I first started hunting there, they used to mow everything, right? And the deer kind of had like this pattern coming in out of the runway and coming over to the other plot. They kind of made like a circle through that. Well, when they quit mowing it, I noticed the deer patterns totally changed. Like, they quit going back there mowing, and they got all grown up in briars, and the bucks quit doing what I'd seen them do in the past. And again, I told you I had to move my stand because there's an ash tree, and that might have changed some stuff too. But so I pretty much went in and I asked the landowner, and I said, hey, can I go in, mow some of this stuff down like it used to be, and be able to put some food down? He's like, well, I don't want you spending a bunch of money and yada, yada. And I said, really, I have the equipment to do it, which that's the biggest part, is having the equipment to do it. And then the second thing is seed. You're talking, if you're doing micro plots, make sure they get good sunlight. And you're talking, I think I've maybe spent each year, not even $100 on seed. You're talking $50 maybe for seed.
Yeah.
And it's just, and then chemical and stuff. I mean, yeah, maybe have like $50 worth of chemical burn down. But other than that, it's really low cost. But I pretty much went in there and mowed where they had all the briars. There's not a lot of big trees, and did that. But then I've done it in stages. You know, I 3 plots, I kind of just slowly, I change it just so little every year because I don't want it to be
A big shock.
a big
for 'em
shock for
right
them.
away.
So, and then I've had my blind. So I've had my blind in 3 different locations on this property. And I killed on the first year. I had it on the property. And the buck was in the corner, like I told you. And then that was a CWD buck. I killed him the Friday of CWD. And then I moved my blind to the corner where me and Homie hunted last year. And of course, Homie would be up here hunting with us, but he's been sick, and so he decided to stay home. But and then this year I moved the blind. What we faced last year is we were just too far from the food hole.
Mhm.
We were like that 50 yards too far, and that was Homie's request. So I put the blind, the elevated blind that's now there. It's not permanent. I mean, it kind of is permanent, but I can still move it out of there. 50 yards down the line, you can still shoot to north, and you got about 100. What was that doe? 144 in the food plot.
Yeah.
Like in the woods in the food plot.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like trial and error with the blinds, because I just don't ever know.
You don't want to get too close to where you're pressuring the deer.
Right.
You don't want to be too far away, so you can't get a shot.
Right. Exactly. And it's like, I think a lot of times,
Because
and even you said it, you're like, oh man, you have the blind out here in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, if I had the blind out in the middle, the deer would be there by the timber. You know, it's
Yeah.
always one of those.
Yeah.
I think consistently that spot over there, we've had the most traffic through there.
Yeah. Every
You
time
know?
you hunt, the deer are somewhere else. Most
It always,
of the time,
you
know?
try to follow them around. You're
Yeah. Then they're feeding in a different spot in
Exactly.
the field.
And I think a big thing that helped this year, and you saw it, was all the down corn.
Yeah.
I mean, they're out. That's where they were feeding out.
And then they were feeding in the high spot where the snow didn't.
Yeah,
drift.
you pointed that out, and I never really noticed that.
The low spot, that snow had melted, and it was like
Because right
thick,
when
hard snow.
because that's right where we walked out. They were
Yeah.
feeding when we walked out.
Yeah. And that was all powdery, real soft. And when we got out of the blind, it was all crunchy and really
Yeah,
hard.
everything near the timber was
Yeah.
heavy snow, but the food plot, they had that pretty much cleared off.
Yeah. Yeah. The food plot's kind of pretty much cleared up, but the cornfield, I think they could just get to the corn so much easier on the high spot.
Yeah, and
That's where they went.
And I think like my future plan is I would like to, again, it's a cost, but I'd like to be able to sublease like an acre or two there on the edge of the woods. Again, it's timber soil too, and I don't think it costs a ton of money, but I think that'd be a good option, like you were talking about, like sublease that from the farmer and plant in beans and leave them up all year. Maybe wrap it in 6 rows of corn just to keep it kind of hidden a little better, but if you can't plant food plots, you can't.
Yeah.
But if you can work with your landowners, even if you don't own it, a lot of times there's spots you can put them in, you know?
Mhm.
And I think you guys noticed that this year. Big
Yeah.
time
You
with-
can try to.
and you guys,
find a little
did
spot.
you ever till that up, or was it just throwing
No,
them,
just
right?
throwing them,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that's just,
Yeah.
it can be so beneficial.
Mhm.
And I think too, is not just for killing the deer, it's
Good for the deer. Yeah. Good for the deer.
I mean, all this farm equipment has done nothing but get more efficient and drop
Yeah.
less corn.
Yeah.
And less corn, less beans.
Yeah.
Everything's just so much better. I mean, you remember back when, and I'm not that old,
Yeah.
but I remember when the corn stalks were like knee high. Now they're like ankle high.
Yeah.
So there's no cover out in the fields. And again, I don't think the combines drop as much.
No. Yeah. We have one farmer that has an older combine, and he picks real slow, and there's always a ton of corn out in his field.
Those are the best.
You can tell.
Those are the best.
But one thing I wanted to mention is the property that you're hunting is kind of set up with an east and a west timber, and they kind of move in a triangle you were talking about.
Yeah.
And then it don't sound like the east timber you put very much pressure on.
No,
at all.
I try to I try to leave it alone, because I feel like as soon as I step foot in there, it just blow them out.
So I think the reason there's so many deer is your guys' food, the combination of your relationship with your neighbor,
Yeah.
and then you not pressuring that block of timber up there because that's where all those deer went.
And a lot of times too, and I don't even pressure in the timber that we were hunting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have.
You're hunting the edges.
I'm hunting the edges and just 30, 40 yards in on the one side that I walk in on. I just don't, it's just so hard with everybody hunting around you, especially when it gets down to gun season. This season, I don't worry a lot about. There's not a lot of people that have blinds that are heated or are going to sit out and hunt.
Yeah, 'cause this morning it was 20-mile-an-hour winds and drifting snow.
Yeah,
and
there's no way you're going to sit out in that. But I think that's always what I worry about is bumping them off of where they're comfortable. Like I'm fine at, like, I think this year that's what we had that during the rut and stuff during the first season is full moon, trash weather is warm, and all them bucks were just locked down with the does in there. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to go bump them out of there because again, I got food. I got, and that's kind of that.
You're letting
preparing for late season.
You're preparing for late season. You put the food in, and you got it set up to where if you don't get it done in the rut or shotgun season, you're like, I got time.
Right.
He's still going to be here later on. I like the way that you got it set up. The blind that you got, I've never set in a blind that nice, but I think that's like if someone really wants to get into a late season food plot, I think that's something that you should really think about investing in if you can.
If you can, it's a 004 outdoors blind is what it is. They're out of Wisconsin. And it's relative. I mean, I think a redneck blind is
pretty close.
But I think is the next step, just the way the windows
probably
open.
$1,000 more.
I think now, like after I looked at pricing, it's probably maybe $500-600 more. But more for me. I mean, it's an investment for me and the kids too. And that's what me and the wife talked about. I'm like, taking young kids out, it's hard to do when it gets cold.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got a heater going in there, I mean, I was never like,
I was
freezing. I never wore gloves.
I've never been more comfortable all day sitting.
Right.
And I feel like that's what it takes because in this spot that you're in, we went in there in the morning and we didn't leave. And you said, well, we can't leave because we're going to bump all these deer that are bedded.
And they were all bedded in that wood.
Yeah, and they're all bedded in that timber. We've been walking right by them.
Yep.
And then
I don't know if you bump them.
Then you got to walk back in the evening.
I don't know if you'll bump them, but they do see you making that move.
Yeah.
Whether they come out or not, but
you got to walk past right where they're going to come out to get to the blind that evening. So it's a smart move to be in there and sit all day, but you can't do that without having a blind. So if you are going to get serious and start thinking about late season food and wanting to hunt it when it's very, very cold, when I was with Homie, we had that opportunity. We were in a stand, but we couldn't have set all day. There's no way. But in this blind, I mean, you could sit all day, no problem. And if you have an opportunity with the food and it's this late in the game, I think an all day sit, people are like, well, you're wasting so much time midday. But really, if it's the weekend, you don't have anything going on.
Like I said to you, I'm like, we got nothing better.
Ice, like you're going to go to the house and take a nap anyways. Yeah. So just hang out there in the blind, make it comfortable, have a heater if you can, and just chill. And that's what we did all day. And I don't think we would have seen half the deer we would have if we would have walked out and then come back in.
Yeah.
Just because if you have a property that sets up good.
I think if you have good access, I think if I had different access to that, like if I could come in maybe from the south or something, or like drive in from the south and come in that way. But again, then I'm cutting myself off from the south. It's in the middle. And then that's the middle of the section. You're in the smack dab middle. And I found that I've just seen the most activity with all day sits and be comfy in the blind, plenty of food, bring more water this time.
Yeah.
This next time. Yeah. But in 2020, when I killed that buck, I sat all day and it was the same situation like we had. I think I saw 2 deer in the morning, snowstorm coming in the afternoon, and 3 o'clock, the first deer I see was the buck I was there that I wanted to shoot.
Yeah.
And so it's like, now if I would have been, maybe if I would have been walking out there too, because he was real like vague on when he'd come in and out of there. Every day he was in there, but you never knew if it was going to be noon, 1 o'clock, 7 a.m. So it was like one of those deals where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to take the day off and get in there. And it paid off. He was eating in my food plot. hammering the brassicas.
Yeah.
They would just dig them things up. Last year we had all the snow, and in the runway plot, the deer actually dug down. We had like 3 feet of snow. They dug down 3 feet to get.
Yeah, those
to dig
were
those
in
up.
there. I could see them hanging out of their mouth.
Yeah.
That's what we planted, those brassicas. That's a good thing to plant, I think, because
It's all season.
yeah, it's all season, and they really don't hit it really hard in November. So you make sure and have some left.
And the thing is I like about it is because if I plant beans in there,
yeah,
they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
If you have a herd of say 40, 50 deer, you cannot put a quarter acre of beans without a fence on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched like Garrett and Grant, they fence theirs and stuff because you have to.
Yeah.
But I think if I did like 3 acres of beans, I think it would be pretty safe. I did an acre one year that was flooded out to the south of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then the farmer came and chisel plowed it under, which I was like,
Wow.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
He pays to farm that. I just planted it in a flooded area.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those deals that like, if you I planted like 6 rows, kind of where we were sitting of beans, they didn't make it.
Yeah.
They eat them when they're green. They'll eat them down to just a nub, and they'll never get mature. So that full season plots, I think that plot that is in there now, I found 2 brands I really like. I like the Real World's Deadly Dozen. They have plot topper and harvest salad mixed together. And then I use this one. That one's a mossy oak biologic called Final Forage.
Yeah.
I've had really good luck with that food plot and that variety. And I think it's cool too. Like you guys, you noticed that you had deer there early hitting the greens, right?
Yeah.
So they'll hit the greens early, eat all the leafy stuff, and then late season they're digging up them turnips and sugar beets.
And that's what we've seen. They eat it early and then kind of left it alone, which was good because it wasn't a giant plot, and that gave it time for there to be late season food. Because if they would have been there all year eating on it, it would have been gone. It seemed like after we got that frost and got some cold weather and they kind of wilted down, that's when they wanted to go back in there and eat them.
Yeah. So like there's like I haven't done a lot of research on it, but there is a time that I've noticed where they kind of, I don't know if they lose their palatability for the deer and the deers don't want to eat it. But again, there's also all the corns getting, it's a huge change. It's a huge change in like just everything, cover everything. It's just acorns.
And then now there's nothing. Like they're trying to pick through a chisel plowed field or something like that.
Yeah, they're looking for scraps.
And then they got this buffet of greens that they can hit.
Well, and it's nice because if you have neighbors and you're planting something maybe he's not, you kind of get that. Like I said, it's like a triangle because they hit the 3 timbers like it's a triangle just because there's such a variety,
Yeah, that's the thing I think is key when you have the option to put food in. It's so valuable. And people think of a food plot and they're like, man, it's just going to take so much time and so much effort. And I got to have all this equipment. And you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. And that's what we covered in our last podcast. And then, you talk to Grant about it on a podcast and you come up here a week later and you see how valuable it is, where every deer that you had on cam that you wanted to get a look at, see whether you wanted to shoot or not, you got to see it.
We're there. I mean, we could have shot them.
Yeah.
The biggest buck out there, we could have shot him.
Yeah. And that just shows you like, okay, that's what the power of not pressuring these deer, kind of giving them a place to chill and having that food. Cause these are deer that like the acorn buck, you've never seen him all year. And then boom, he's out there daylight, just chilling. And that's just like the buck we try to kill. I call him Buzz now, but he's nocturnal all year, and then he's daylight on the food plot one day. We go into the next day.
He was never daylight, did he?
Never daylight.
Never daylight. Yeah. And so that,
not even close to
daylight. And you got a shot, and you were there and got the shot at him.
Yeah.
It's just
And that was just because the power of that food and the cold weather,
and
that's just so powerful if you can do anything. So I want to chat with you about kind of your setup, because you have like a kind of a year you've been putting in work a little bit, investing a little more time, clearing a little bit more. And I think a lot of people think you got to start with some giant, huge thing, and you don't. Like you can make an impact on your deer herd with something small. And even if you don't kill off that plot, you're still, like you said, you're giving them something to eat, like when there's nothing out there.
Yeah, exactly. And you can look at those bucks and another
Yeah.
not
No, they all look
none of them
great.
were run down, and I think they've been.
Yeah,
Almost all those bucks. I mean, I know that whole group of bucks has been in my food plot because like a week ago I had
think you
pictures
got
like
so many
5 bucks.
does too. I don't know if they're running real hard during the rut.
No, they don't. I don't think they do. There's a lot of those.
So many does.
And the thing is, like we're getting to that point too, where they shot a lot of deer for CWD in the area, and I don't know if they do anymore.
Yeah.
But there for a few years, the deer population was really low, and nobody was shooting does just because it was like
so low. Yeah.
Man, like I want to actually have deer to hunt, and it seems like it's kind of making a turn. And again, I don't know how many cases they found or anything like that, but it is like you said it today. You're like, man, if I had the CWD, I would take advantage of it every year. And
you got to try.
I've said to my dad too, I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm cheating because I get to use a gun for 2 weekends when everybody else can only use
you go to Iowa, they've been using muzzleloader in the prime.
Right.
late
Yeah,
season,
I guess.
You know what I
Well, and
mean?
they have an early muzzleloader too, don't they?
They have early muzzleloader and a late muzzleloader.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just if your state has the tag available.
Well, that's what my dad said. He's like, if it's legal, it's legal. It's legal. It is.
It's like me being not from this county, but you buy a tag. I mean, you're good to go. It's so it's a little more money you invest, but then you get to go hunt, and that's what that's why I came up here, was just to film you.
Yeah.
But if this is the last week we get to hunt all year, so I told you, I said I seen as many deer as I seen all year combined in one set. So it's cool to see them all out there. You get to see how they work. You get to see like they're all different. They kind of kept to their family groups. What they come out with is kind of how they fed.
And then they fed separate. That one group kind of went back off.
The family group kind of fed separate. You could kind of see like there's a group of really big does, and they still had their fawns, and then there's a group of like
a bunch of small, probably like button bucks.
A bunch of really small button bucks and small does. Like that was the dominant doe group that come out of your piece with the big does. And then you had a kind of like a subdominant doe group that was over there by the hayfield.
Yep. They never really wanted to come out and feed on that corn. They never came out.
They kind of stayed over there in that hayfield on that edge instead of coming out. So it's cool to see, like you got so many deer out there, you're binoing and you're trying to find. I'm like, what? It's by the tree over here. I'm like, okay.
And I think that like that's one of those things too. Is like I was telling you when you got here, I said I've never killed a buck with my bow in the rut. I either do it in October or I'm like I do hunt. I hunt hard, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just not that good at hunting.
No, I think you got so many does.
But it's hard, and that's just it right there too. I mean, those bucks
they're locked down and just not moving because they got so many options of does. Like when we hunt on our piece, we seen 10 does at one set. We were like, wow, like that's this is shit. And there was like 30 plus. We didn't even count, but that one group was like
there was at least 30 in the one group that came
across. There was probably 40 plus deer, and probably 20 or 30 of them, at least 30 were does.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're already 3-1 on bucks. And then you go for mature bucks. You got 3 or 4 mature bucks and you got 40 does. You're 10-1.
And I couldn't believe the amount of just like good 2.5-year-old buck. Like and I've seen a couple of them and got to see them, but I couldn't tell when we were looking at them. I'm like, I don't even know which one's which. They're literally crossed the path so many times. It's like,
but you got to think mature buck, he's going to get the first ops to breed a doe, and you're looking at 10-1 odds.
But I don't think they have to work that hard.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they got 10 does.
And that's
buck.
The thing too, is I even said to you when we got in the house, and I know I didn't see him.
Yeah.
Because the buck I passed on, like a week after I shot my archery buck, I went in to the same stand, and he's a really good looking deer.
I wonder
if
hopefully he just made it. Hopefully he made it still.
I think he did. Well, he was in there. What day? How many days ago was that? He was in my food plot, but he was not with any of those. I would have noticed him.
Yeah.
Because he's just heavier. But it's just one of those things. It's like that's cool that wherever he's at, he could still be in he could have been the other group that stayed north and went west.
That you seen that one decent buck that
but I never got like a good look at it.
Could have been him too.
But
I mean that just goes to show you that you're not pressuring these deer hard, and they got food. they all look healthy, really good when they should be looking the worst they've looked all year.
Yeah, I think
They
that's a
all
huge
still
thing.
had their antlers.
And it's great. It's been cold, but I don't think it's been as harsh yet.
Yeah, no, not
But it's
yet.
still been pretty cold.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's still been pretty cold. We've been
Negative temps.
negative temps, snow on the ground for 3 weeks or.
I mean, they're herded up. I mean, they're in the survival mode. of the
Yeah,
season.
and we didn't even see a half rack buck out of 10 bucks.
And I
probably.
have seen half rack bucks that have shed
So
over here, further up by my house.
yeah, so I think that they're doing really good down there, and it's probably because your neighbor has food, you have food, and you guys aren't pressuring them, and they're
Right.
having, and you guys are out there hunting them, but just like you're taking advantage of the tag, but you're not just out there slaughtering them because you can slaughter them. You're saying, hey, if a giant comes out, biggest buck I ever shot, I'll take a shot. I told you, I already shot 3 bucks. I got a tag. I'm not looking to kill anything.
Right.
Just coming up here to hang out, have a good time.
I know homie would have smashed him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Homie would have smashed.
I sent him pictures of me. He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, come on,
he
dude.
would have smashed for sure. But yeah.
But that's just it too, is, I mean, I don't want to go into like the late season because you have the food, you pretty much have the advantage.
Yeah.
You have heated blind that you can sit in and you have the food.
Yeah.
You can sit any temperatures, you're in the game. And so something that's interesting too is my in-laws property, my father-in-law was up there, which is, that we set that up for food. We got 5 acres of set aside grass that's planted that's 6 feet tall. And then we have probably 4 or 5 acres or better of food. And he said tonight he had, or this morning, 2 shooters and a younger buck and then a couple does.
Yeah.
Feed through the plot and into his woods. And it's like right there. I mean, they're out there feeding when it's cold. And again, he'll be out there tomorrow and hopefully, like I said,
people say you can't kill bucks when it's cold, but these plots, we're seeing it
changes it up.
Yeah, it changes it up. When you have that late season plot, it's like they're like, all right, I'm out feeding. I'm going to hit this late season plot right before I go to bed for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, hit it, and then I'm going to roll into bed. We've seen that with the buck that homie got a shot at. It was daylight a couple days after in the day, right there on the plot. So it just goes to show you that we want to do this podcast because up here with Logan hanging out, but we also want to, let our listeners know if you can plant a food plot, it's so valuable. And you're like, man, if I plant a food plot, then I get a shotgun blind, and then I got to get, elevated, and you're thinking all the costs. It don't have to be. I mean,
if you got good access, you don't have to sit out there all day.
You could do a stand.
Yeah.
And as long as you have good access, you have a way to get out of the woods.
Right. Get in and out. And even we got out tonight and the deer out in the middle of the field. We ended up walking past them.
Yeah.
200 yards north of them, and they just stayed there.
Just stayed there.
But it's so crazy because other times I've done that and they're gone.
Yeah, I think they're just. The snow was probably so crunchy where they were at. They're just feeding and not even really.
It was kind of weird like that.
We
did
had
bump
the wind
some of them
up by the truck.
Yeah, but
we had the wind blowing right at us too because we kind of looped around to get out of there.
Right.
So that helped out. But
and it's just one of those things. I think everybody. I've always told people if you try food plots one year, and it doesn't turn out like you see on a hunting show, and it's not just knee-high greens. It's okay to just try it in one more year, because I found like when you go and you kill off a plot, or like you've never had a plot there, it's grass, whatever, you mow it, you kill it off and you plant something, that first year plot's never the best.
Yeah.
And I don't do a lot of soil samples.
Yeah, but once you.
But the soil up here is so good. It's like I rotate what I plant.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're not really taking a lot out of the.
When you plant turnips, you're adding a lot of stuff to the ground.
Boy, you're actually making that ground. I mean, it's super. It's like when I go in there and till that, it's like the best freaking soil you've ever seen.
That's a lot of farmers. They do a cover crop for turnips,
right,
and then just get in because they put so much good nutrients in the ground. Right, like plant corn again.
Yep, and so and that's one of the things too is I've always had my second year plot is always better than the first year.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah.
I planted that plot that we hunted, that we were the better one. That was the second year I planted that up front. So that plot was small the year prior. Mm-hmm. And then I went in the next year and I went in deeper, further back in the woods, and mowed more briar. So I kind of normally, there's like an evolution of my plots. They get a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper if I can mow.
You're not trying to spend a ton of time, a ton of money on it. You're just trying to improve over the year. And that's what I was saying. You don't have to have a giant plot. You don't have to have a shotgun blind. But say this year, I'm going to make it an effort. I'm going to put me a plot in, and then you start saving money, and you're like, okay, I'm going to get me a nice stand. And now you got a plot and a stand in 5 years.
Or you invest, or instead of that, or you invest in more cold weather gear.
Yeah.
So you can go out there and sit, stuff like that. Like,
everybody's looking for an advantage and they want to know a tip or a tactic. And when Mother Nature, she's giving you a gift that make these deer just forget everything that they've dealt with all year. They cannot help it. So if you have a buck in your area and you just can't, that this thing won't daylight. If you have late season food and he's around the area, he's going to be on that thing of daylight.
He's going to be there.
He's going to be there eventually. And it's just a matter of time then is how long can I hunt this spot without getting cold and
right.
not
Exactly.
hunting, you know?
Exactly.
That's
is he going to show up tonight?
Yeah.
Or was it last night?
Yeah,
Knowing what kind of wind.
And you're still looking to get lucky, but the power of him, the power of him being, there's a reason for him to be there.
He's like, I think that's probably something why I'm so bad at hunting the rut is because I'm always in the wrong spot at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Like I'll be over here and I'll look at my phone. And it's like, oh, your trail camera just went off over here. And it's like, oh, yep, shooter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, again, that's just how it goes. A lot of times, I mean, the deer go certain ways with certain winds and they have it at their advantage and you can't get in there.
Yeah.
But that's it right there though, is you're getting that deer to do something consistent that he probably hadn't done all year.
And more than likely, I mean, he might bed a little bit to the wind for this food plot, but he's going to come to that food plot no matter what the wind, if the weather's cold.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to be like, oh, it's south.
And I found like, again, food plots, hidden food plots, or even partial of your food plot that's hidden.
They feel
it's a staging plot. They're literally all the does are going to get out there. Then once the does work out, and I mean, I've seen it 100 times. Once the does get out and out of the field, they all look in behind them. You know, it's behind them.
Yeah.
Here comes the parade of bucks coming out, you know? And I think it's something that's interesting that now that I just think of it, now we're talking about a parade of bucks. Dad and I were hunting there last year and the deer were coming out in the runway in the food plot, and same when homie was up here. And I bet we had probably a dozen, just the dinkiest little bucks you've ever seen. Yeah. Not a one of them was more than a basket or even a basket. And we always talk about them, always like, man, there should be more good bucks out here just because of all the small bucks we've seen in previous years. But tonight I saw way less dinks compared to good 2
and that could be
to 3-year-old bucks.
CWD. I don't know if the county was going around and kind of sniping some of the older deer there for a couple of years.
I mean, technically they say that, bucks are the older mature bucks are the ones that carry it because again, they travel more.
Yeah. They spread it more.
Exactly.
More
so again, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, because I know that like the snipers,
sharpshooters,
whatever.
And ain't nothing about sharpshooting deer at night.
They target
pile at 50 yards.
Yeah, they target mature deer too.
Yeah,
and they do it in CWD counties, and this is a CWD county. They do the same thing in Knox County.
Yeah,
they go in there and they kill a lot of deer, and a lot of them are bucks. And I think maybe that was the problem. But now, like you said, you had a lot of like good 2-3-year-old.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's got me jacked for next year.
Yeah, you got like a couple to really look forward to, and then you're gonna have a lot.
I'm gonna have a handful that I'm gonna be like, I'm probably gonna end up shooting. And I'm like, damn it, I'm double bucked again. Double buck. Yeah. And again, it's crazy double bucking this year, back-to-back years. And again, I'm not shooting giants, but
you're shooting mature.
I like hunting. I like killing deer. We eat the meat. I told you this before, and I said, I'm probably we're both probably about 3 to 4 or 5 years away from our kids, our oldest starting to hunt. And I'm like, I'm probably gonna be done killing. And maybe when I get to that point, when I up the ante and let the kids fill the freezer and I'm more out there looking for the big buck, and I guess I've said too, if I never kill a 180, it's not the end of the world. I like hunting, I like killing bucks, and I like putting in the work. I like putting in the work. I think it's I've changed from the way I used to hunt. I used to just get property to hunt the bucks that are there, just do it, and I've kind of changed if I can hunt this, let's make it better. Not just for me, but I think it's going to make the area better.
Yeah. And then, a lot of those young bucks that you're seeing, probably the reason you have a lot of okay bucks is because they had that added nutrition all year.
Oh yeah.
From you guys planting food and giving them shelter and not pressuring them. And when they have nothing in February, March,
they're not getting bumped around.
Yeah, they're not getting bumped around, and they have food out there. So they're going into their antler growth. A lot of deer go into the antler growth like the worst shape of the year.
Yeah.
And these deer are probably going into it.
The other thing that's kind of cool too is I've noticed with these full season plots is you'll have shit germinate for the next year.
Yeah.
Like I've gone into my plots and I've had rye that grew for because when you talk about all season, I've had cereal grain grow the next year, and that's why they call them full season, because that stuff comes up after some of the first stuff sprouted, like winter wheat or something is there, and them deer are hitting it.
Yeah.
I've seen when I was turkey hunting, the deer feeding in our food plots up in my in-laws.
Yeah.
And I can pick out the bucks, you can see their stupid ears and they got big ass spots where they're starting to grow, but right there, it's like your deer food plots are not just for killing deer.
Yeah.
They're for growing deer.
Yeah. They're for helping deer and holding deer to not let other people kill them too. I feel like if you guys didn't have the food and you had all that and all those deer weren't there, that's a lot of bucks just be spread out in the area trying to find a place to go that other people could possibly kill.
Yeah.
Whether they rut on your property or not, if you don't have any food, they're not going to be there late season. They're going to be gone. And with most of these farmers chisel plowing fields now because they want to plant corn again, they're
not a lot of people know till beans and corn rows.
No,
it's just not I know my uncle.
They used to do it a lot, but they don't.
It's not very common anymore.
No, they chisel plow that shit.
Even if they plant beans, corn stalks are always chisel plowed.
Yeah.
And what's interesting this next year will be the first time I was telling you he does planted beans. I think it'll be the first time it's beans
it'll be way easier to access.
10 years. Oh gosh, yeah. It'll be way easier to get to the stand, but also I'm super exposed out there too.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's just figuring out your property a little bit better. Just if you can do anything, even the small stuff. And again, with your guys' property, how many years have you had that?
Yeah, it'd be the 5th year.
It's the first time you put a plot there.
Yeah, and it was a game changer. It went from.
Do you guys talk about that? Like where you just sprayed it?
Yeah, we just sprayed it. We did. We talked about 3 different ways to do it. We just sprayed it and broadcast seed went before rain, and raked the grass and burned what we could and had good soil.
Yep.
And then
if you're in North Central Illinois,
it should grow.
It's
sunlight,
gonna grow.
Yeah.
It's gonna grow. And that's just it too. You gotta have good sunlight.
Yeah.
And you can think you have good sunlight in a spot. You got to go in there when it's the middle of summer and all the leaves are on the trees.
Yeah. And then one thing I think it's important to mention, it don't have to look like a damn TV plot. There was a bunch of bare patches in ours. And
weeds.
There's a bunch of those fucking purple berry.
You had your trail camera. You had that, and you weren't going in there because you had that buck daylight.
I had a damn weed grow up right in front of it, and then we had a bunch of those purple berry bushes in there. And you're just like, the deer, that's natural for them to eat around and stuff. You don't have to look like a damn cattle pasture in there.
Exactly.
So I think that's important to say. If you plant something and it don't look awesome, it's not a big deal. But all right, we're gonna wrap this up, guys. Appreciate you listening this long. We love you. Always do the right thing. Leave a legacy, and Whitetail Legacy is out.